given that we already have the call record, we don't need the whistleblower who wasn't on the call to tell us what took place during the call. We have the best evidence of that. We do want to make sure that we identify other evidence. It may not be necessary to take steps that might reveal the whistleblower's identity to do that.
So those comments brought this about from Trump, and we quote, "Shifty Schiff now seems to think we don't need the whistleblower who started the whole scam. The reason is that the whistleblower has lost all credibility because the story is so far from the facts on the capital T transcript. Also, the second whistleblower is no longer even mentioned." The House, meantime, is moving forward with the impeachment inquiry. Tomorrow marks some key deadlines here. Rudy Giuliani, Defense Secretary Mark Esper, Acting OMB Director Russell Vought, and Mike Pence's office all have until tomorrow to hand over documents to Congress. Yesterday, Esper over at the Pentagon said his department will do everything it could to comply with the subpoena. But you'll recall just last week, the White House straight up refused to hand over documents to Congress. In a letter, White House counsel Pat Cipollone told the Democrats their impeachment inquiry was constitutionally invalid, despite what it says in the Constitution about the House having the sole power of impeachment. Because we could all use a good lawyer right about now, we're so happy to be joined once again tonight by Neil Katyal, a veteran of the Justice Department and former acting Solicitor General during the Obama administration. He happens to have argued 39 cases before the United States Supreme Court, so this shouldn't be too difficult for you, Counselor. First of all, how is an impeachment constitutionally invalid? Second of all, how does a White House straight up say we're not cooperating?
I don't think they can do either. And let me say, Brian, for the last 2 weeks, I haven't been doing much TV or anything because I've been trying to study the history of the 3 presidential impeachment proceedings and then compare it to all the evidence in Ukraine that's come out over the last few weeks. And my ultimate conclusion, and this will be a part of a longer writing project, is that I think that the president is going to be impeached. I don't think that he has any valid arguments to the contrary, and it's very, very serious. And it started with, of course, the transcript, which the president himself has released on July 25th. So when he goes and attacks the whistleblower, I think Schiff is absolutely right. The whistleblower is not necessary at all. He started the chain of events, or she started the chain of events, but now we have the transcript itself, and then every day brings new evidence that's all damaging to the president, whether it's one of his former ambassadors saying something untoward happened. Today, John Bolton, just a few hours ago, saying Giuliani was a hand grenade. There was a secret deal being cooked up between the White House chief of staff and Giuliani over pressuring Ukraine over Biden. All of this stuff is tremendously, I don't know another word for it, but evil. And the idea that the president's going to win by attacking the impeachment investigation, we had a president in our lifetimes who tried it. It was President Nixon. It didn't turn out too well for him.
Neil, do you have reason to believe that the evidence this time around will be so compelling and this story will be so plainly obvious and easy to follow that lawmakers who so far have not been turned will ultimately be turned against the president?
Yes. So the evidence is all already there. So this isn't a case like Mueller where you've got to have 22 months of investigation. These are the president's own words, his own documents. Indeed, he even just said on the White House lawn, he said he would do it again and seek information from China. So we now know this is a president who's admitted to it. You can go back to the founding. You can look at James Madison. You can look at Alexander Hamilton. All these folks say the primary evil, the thing they are so worried about a president doing, is going and seeking foreign influence over an election and trying to get himself reelected. It is literally like what the textbook definition of an impeachment is. So he can run, he can try and hide, but he's actually admitted it. And, I do believe that in this country, that it is a country that is ultimately one of country over party. And yes, I know that that's been tested over the last 3 years, but here the evidence is simple, it's clear, and it's overwhelming.
Have you any reservations over the ability of Justices Kavanaugh and Gorsuch to fairly rule on cases involving the president who appointed them?
Well, I don't think that with respect to impeachment, the Supreme Court has said in a case called Nixon versus United States, not President Nixon, but Walter Nixon, a judge, that the Supreme Court has no role whatsoever in impeachment. And I know the president keeps tweeting, "Oh, I'll see you in my Supreme Court over this, fake impeachment and stuff like that." He can try and bring it to the Supreme Court. He will lose because the Supreme Court has been clear. Now, there could be any number of documentary issues or something like that that are brought in the context of criminal proceedings. But even there, I don't have reservations. People had reservations when the Nixon tapes case went to the U.S. Supreme Court, which is part of the criminal investigation against him. And the Supreme Court had 4 justices appointed by President Nixon himself. One of them, Justice Rehnquist, recused. The other 3 sat on the case, all 3 ruled against President Nixon. And that will happen here because the president has made ridiculous, absurd executive privilege claims. And he's cried wolf too many times. And I can't imagine that this Supreme Court would countenance that kind of lawlessness from our chief executive.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.